Hello and welcome to the Leaders Council podcast with me, Scott Challoner. This podcast, just like the Leaders Council itself, is all about recognising and celebrating the people who keep this great country running. We exist to offer leaders a voice outside of their own organisations and to support them in the same way that they support their staff every single day of the week. If you are in a leadership position yourself and would like to have your voice heard on the national stage, then please do go to leaderscouncil.co.uk/apply. Now, each week on this programme, I'm joined by a different leadership figure from the world of business, education, politics, sport, or even from local communities in the aim of truly discovering who those people are that get up every morning and make this country work. We get their take on the current economic and political landscape of the UK and discuss everything from herd immunity to looking after the community and, of course, the success and the innovation that makes it all worthwhile in the end. On today's programme, I'm delighted to be joined by Anwar Ali, Managing Director of Upturn Enterprises, a fast-growing social enterprise. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Anwar onto the programme. Anwar, good morning and welcome, and thank you for joining us on the programme.
Yeah, good morning, Scott, and thank you for having me, and thanks to the listeners who might be listening in.
Yeah, it's a pleasure welcoming you onto the programme. Certainly is a lovely warm day for it. And I suppose a good place to start, Anwar, would be by addressing the elephant in the room here. And that's the fact that as we record this on June the 15th, 2021, we are less than 24 hours after finding out that the Freedom Day of June 21st has been pushed back to July the 19th. So we're still going to be under some form of COVID-19 related social restrictions for a little while longer, having been in the grip of the pandemic in some way, shape or form for the best part of the last 14 months, going back to March 2020 when the first lockdown in the UK was called. So over this whole period of time, how has the pandemic affected you and your organisation, Upturn, would you say?
Well, like all of the businesses, I guess, we were affected from day one, as in all the uncertainty. Obviously, no one knew what was happening, really. I think, obviously, we've been playing catch-up ever since we kind of entered into lockdown. And places like Oldham and Greater Manchester, we've actually never been out of lockdown, to be honest. You know, the COVID variants and everything else has been running rampant, as you can see right now at this moment in time. You know, places like Bolton and Blackburn just on our doorstep. The infection rates with the new Delta variant is running rife at this moment in time. It just never seems to us that we've never really been out of any kind of lockdown. So where the rest of the country at certain points kind of eased, we were still under severe restrictions, and obviously that has a knock-on effect, you know, all across society, and more particularly from our perspective as a small SME business. You know, we were really affected, but it's the uncertainty, that's the unknown, that has really affected us. Unlike yesterday's announcement from the government, again, we're still in that unknown. We're not 100% sure exactly we're doing the right thing by unlocking the way we are doing, or even kind of returning back to the office in a limited capacity. So my guess is as good as yours at this moment in time, and everybody else in the country. You know, we're trying to just get on and do the right things as safely as possible, I guess. But no one has any answers that, you know, can give us a definite yes or no here, there or anywhere else.
Yeah, exactly. It is difficult operating in such an uncertain and such a restricted landscape, isn't it? And I suppose that also takes its toll on people's anxieties, people's mental health and people's overall well-being, doesn't it? What impact have you seen on mental health within Upturn and within the people that you work with? And how have you sort of gone about managing that, Anwar?
I mean, first and foremost, obviously the impact has been kind of not severe, I would say, in that respect. It's just all the uncertainty from a business point of view. Obviously, anyone who employs any members of staff, you know, it's a worrying time because it's, you know, you're part of a bigger family, and obviously we've been affected as well. You know, over the past 18 months, where various people have actually come down with COVID, and we weren't sure 100%, you know, how they were going to be affected, etc., etc. And it's really been challenging just to keep the business going in this time, because from our perspective as a small SME, we were lumped in. Doesn't matter that we're a social enterprise as such. We were just treated like any other businesses in terms of what was available to us and the support and the information that we had access to. But the mental health issues, I try to keep, a handle of things as much as I can in terms of being there for other people. But from my own personal point of view, it's just been a stressful time as such. I'm the kind of person that tries to be a bit more laid back and tries to always look at the positives. But it's been really difficult over the past 18 months to kind of stay positive in lots of different ways because we are surrounded, like I said, with so many issues all over the show. And like I said, it breaks my heart sometimes just seeing the amount of issues that have kind of come to the fore as a result of COVID. These are things that I've been campaigning for and fighting against for since we set up Upturn, back in 2004. And it's just been absolutely eye-watering, some of the stories, some of the people that we've been trying to help whilst society is kind of shut down and it's like they've forgotten, are left to kind of look out for support, and it's just not there. So the human cost of what's happened with COVID, I don't think we'll fully understand that and appreciate that until we've kind of come out of the pandemic. But from our perspective as a business, we've tried to do our best, as, like everybody else, just trying to get on with things, and that's the only advice I could kind of say to anyone is you just have to just, like I say, roll your sleeves up and try and do your best in whichever capacity you've got.
Exactly right. And you talked a lot about the sort of guidance and support that had been on offer during this time. And when it comes to sort of the government's overall leadership and guidance over the COVID period, there's been much made of sort of the positive sides of things with sort of the business support schemes like the furlough scheme, but also a lot made of mistakes as well. So, for example, maybe that herd immunity strategy at the beginning leading to more problems than, of course, good things. Do you think that government leadership, therefore, could have been better? There could have been clearer guidance published sooner, and they could have better supported business? Or is it just a case of they've done the best that they could with minimal time to act?
I think reflecting back, and funny enough, I was actually giving an evidence last week to the All Parliamentary Group for Social Enterprises on this very subject in terms of, just reflecting back over the last, period of lockdown and seeing what could have been done and what could have been done better. I guess at the beginning, because nobody kind of knew about the, COVID in any way, we were, I think there was a bit of leeway given to the government. But over the last 18 months, there were so many areas that I think the government has kind of let us down slightly. It's a thankless job anyway in the best of times. But there's certain things, like I said, that I haven't agreed with. They could have reacted a bit quicker. They've waited too long or delayed certain conversations. But generally, like I said, the furlough scheme and things like that, they've been a godsend, not just only to ourselves, but to the businesses that we work with and people that we support. The wider grant offer, again, I don't think there's not going to be enough money in the world that would help all businesses. So I think the government were under a difficult task here because you're never going to please everyone, and so many sectors under, so much severe pressure in all kinds of ways. But I think the response at times has been flaky, in my opinion. They could have done a lot more, a lot quicker. And I guess that mainly comes down to the communications. There's conflicting messages going out there as an organisation who kind of supports businesses, irrespective of whether you're public, private or third sector. We saw this misunderstanding or this fake news, whatever you want to call it, out there. Businesses just didn't know. They were told one bit of guidance and then the next day someone else said something else totally different. So it's been a really, difficult time, I guess. And in terms of ourselves as a social business, we were just, like I said, we were treated like any other business. There was no special, things applied to ourselves, other than later on, as different sectors kind of came to the fore, there were some additional monies made available through various, initiatives or grants given. But again, I think the sector was very much on its knees by then, and all these funds were oversubscribed. So we managed, like I said, to apply for a number of pots. Never kind of got rejected because they were oversubscribed, but we did manage to get some emergency funding in at the time. But like I said, in light of what I've seen out there, in light of some other businesses that have really struggled, and I've actually witnessed quite a few businesses go under as well, and the human capital or the suffering, again, from all aspects. It's not something nice to experience or see people suffering. So as a social business, it's one of the things that we pride ourselves. We're here to support, and obviously we were, with the restrictions as well, we weren't able to fully open up, and most of our team were put on furlough, including myself. We tried our best to support, following the government guidelines as best as we could. So that's been really, challenging. And I don't think just for ourselves, but I think across society and the business sector, to be honest, I think where we could, rise to the challenge, we have done, but a lot more needs to be done. And like I said, building back better and everything else, these are just slogans at this moment in time. I think if you go out on the street, people are just waiting to see what happens next, because it's the uncertainty that's killing everyone at this moment in time.
There is a great deal of uncertainty, yes, and the government talks, of course, a good game about building back better, and industry is going to have to play a huge part in making that a reality. But what do you feel, from your personal experience, the government could do to help businesses recover and thrive to make that vision real?
So I think there's a kind of a disconnect here from what centrally the government does nationally and then the kind of local issues. Each local area is totally different and kind of suffered slightly differently as well. So, COVID hasn't been, fair to everyone equally across the UK in any shape or form. So talking about my experience based out of Greater Manchester, like I alluded to earlier, we have never really come out of lockdown, and the infection rates have always been skyrocket high. And even the mayor, you would have seen him on the TV at the time trying to negotiate a better deal. But like I said, there's so much uncertainty, and the demand, for any kind of assistance that, business have been crying out. Locally, I found out, most of the mainstream providers that were providing this type of support, obviously, they shut up shop immediately and they could afford to do that. But the small SME businesses, the people who are really suffering that, in the communities, the people on low-level jobs, they didn't have that luxury. And they didn't have no one to turn to. And like I say, we were inundated, with lots of calls from businesses just asking us for simple things. What grants are we entitled to? Is there any way you can support us? Because we were a bit, not understanding, or individuals were really, suddenly been put on furlough and then been made redundant and things like that, not understanding their rights. And although that's not, central to what we offer completely, the mainstream providers kind of just weren't there to open up their doors. So we felt, like I said, compelled in lots of different ways to, try to open up as safely as we could. But obviously, putting the safety of my staff and my team first, it's been really challenging, and it's not something that, I felt that we could have had more support with. But like I said, I think across the country generally, with everything that's happened, I think we're coming out of it now. I hope we're coming out of it, hoping, to reset and do things slightly differently to how things have been done. If we can't learn the lessons by now, then I think it's a monumental failure on us all, because COVID has kind of shone a light on so many different aspects, not just in the business world, but in what's happened to communities, what's happened to people. And these are ordinary people, don't get me wrong. And we owe it to them that we actually come out this a bit stronger and actually do things differently. Otherwise, I think, we'll just fall back into the old routine and nothing ever changes. So, hopefully that's my aspiration going forward.
And when we talk about the lessons learned from the pandemic, from your experience, Anwar, what do you feel that you've taken away as a lesson from all of this quite difficult and challenging experience?
The thing that I've really taken away from it is the spirit. It never ceases to amaze me when something bad happens, no matter what it is, whether it's here in the UK or anywhere in the world. The mobilisation of ordinary people, and the capacity to do the right thing all the time. So, that's what I've been really impressed with in terms of, the volunteering, the COVID response, in terms of that local offer, in terms of what people do. And even businesses, who who are not open, they're opening up the doors, they're trying to do things, they're really getting involved in communities in different ways. We saw that very evident with the NHS response at the beginning, clapping hands on a Thursday, but, food and all kinds of things that happened, it really lifted the spirit. But again, what it did do is, like I say, highlight those inequalities more so than ever. And places like Oldham, for example, there's some serious problems here. These didn't happen just because of COVID. They've been underlying and, going on for the last 30, 40 years. But what COVID has done is really shone a light that, we need to do something different. We're going to have to, really roll our sleeves up going forward and try address some of these inequalities, because ultimately the human cost and the capital that's been lost here, it's not worth kind of bearing, to really take that forward in a different way. It really plays on my heart, and sometimes I'm lost for words when I'm thinking about the suffering that I've kind of witnessed going forward.
I think you do raise an incredibly important point there. The first one being that the pandemic has had some positives, despite being a tragic time, in terms of how it's brought communities closer together. But what it has also done is expose deep-rooted inequalities within society. You're absolutely right. And when we're in an environment where we're talking about the post-COVID world being one where technology plays more of a part in our day-to-day lives, people are going to have more sort of flexibility to work from home. Particularly digital poverty and that technological divide, that's certainly one of those inequalities that's going to have to be bridged, isn't it? Because there are a lot of people who've struggled during this lockdown with, for example, online education, people of school age who've not been able to access vital resources, and some people have been asked to work from home but simply don't have the technological capability to do that. So doing that, of course, accelerating the rollout of gigabit-capable broadband that the government's talked about, all of these have to form part of that Build Back Better agenda, don't they?
Yeah, I agree. Like I said, COVID has affected different parts of the society differently. The better well-off people, or the middle classes, or the upper classes, not being rude, but kind of whether they haven't really experienced the bad end of what COVID has brought to the table. And the digital divide is growing daily in lots of ways. Technology is a great thing if you can have access to it, if you can afford it. Lots of people, like as you've kind of mentioned there, who are struggling just to get basic access to a PC or a laptop or something. I saw that firsthand myself within my family setting, where obviously I have access to equipment. I have good fast broadband at home. So my son, was able to, to log on to his lessons online, and the school provided, plenty of online content. Well, equally, my own sister, who, really struggles, with 3 or 4 children, has one laptop, between the 3 of them. And, she really struggled, and that's just from a personal note. But I've seen out there in society, we tried to do a campaign where we're trying to get old devices out there into the community, because people just didn't have access to it, just a basic, equipment. And then when we go on to broadband, that's a different kind of a story, because again, in my opinion, broadband should be totally free to everybody. Give everyone free access, because if we really want to embrace the digital age, the most basic things of a basic need would be just access to the internet. A good broadband service where you could just log on. We shouldn't actually charge people. I know there's a commercial reason for this, but I'm kind of a dreamer here at this moment in time. But if it was totally free, that would then open up the digital age truly for everybody. And that digital divide, like I said, unless you experience it, you see it yourself. I'm very much at a privileged position, but I've been there on the other side of the fence, where when I was, obviously we didn't have very much when I was growing up, and I'd really understand and feel for people who are just trying to do their best. No matter where I go out into communities or speak to any individual, all people want to do is just a simple life. They want a job, and they're not being greedy here. Something that pays well, so they can put food on the table, have the odd occasional treat, and just get on with life, in peace, in peaceful times. And it's not much to ask for, but then there's so many things, like I said, that are out of their control that they have no control over. That it, it really holds people back, and then that's the crux of one of the inequalities. I mean, that's just one, being digital, but there's so many of these inequality things that can be solved if we really wanted to, and if we can come up with a vaccine in less than 18 months, then surely if we just concentrated our efforts and really just put a bit more effort and resource into some of those issues, I think society as a whole would really benefit. And then we like I said, we could really move this conversation on, because there's nothing worse than a child not being able to go to school, not being able to access content, who then falls 6-7 months behind even further. And that, in the poorest of our communities, that's a tragedy, and that's not something that any of us should be proud of in any way, shape or form. If anything, we should be singing, not singing, but shouting from our rooftops, this shouldn't have happened, not in a 21st century, UK, one of the richest economies in the world. Why are we got so many inequalities? It's just not acceptable to me.
Yes, exactly. It's something that we have to really face up to as we emerge from the pandemic, isn't it? And rightfully so. We've talked about just how that sort of flexible working and flexible learning approach is so beneficial for that work-life balance, and yet people are barred from the benefits of that by lack of access to digital, and it is so important that we do address that. And what's also something that we're seeing as well is maybe a bit of hopelessness among young people also looking out at the jobs market and seeing the state of the economy. For those sort of young aspiring people of sort of entrepreneurial stock, if you'd like, and aspiring business leaders, Anwar, are there any words of encouragement you would have to give to those people at this time to get them to just take a breather and look at the opportunities that are there? Because despite the impact that COVID has had, there are going to be real opportunities as we hopefully bid to build back better as a society and we implement these changes that we need to see, aren't there?
Yeah, and in terms of going forward, like I said, and especially for the next generation coming forward, we talk about Generation X or the millennials. They're very much, very informed in terms of what it is that they want. They don't want to kind of the old way of doing things. They actually passionately care about the environment. They actually care about each other in a different way. The work-life balance thing is totally more important to them. So I think building back better, and moving towards the future, there's a whole host of opportunities out there. We kind of talked about digital before, but I think we're in that digital, industrial revolution, or call it the digital revolution as we speak now. And young people, and more so all people, we're so more connected now and have more access to information. And there's so many opportunities out there. The bit that, like I said, that most people will be encouraged by is, yes, as we unlock and as we kind of hopefully build back better in whatever that means, in what it means to me is doing things differently. And I think young people will be at the forefront of that, because if we're honest, they've, for a long time, they've had the bad end of the deal in terms of the opportunities. With COVID, I think I saw a stat the other day where it's saying that 2/3 of young people have been affected and most of them are unemployed. So again, building back a business opportunity, because we've got so much talent nowadays as well. What we need to do is inspire the next generation, to give them the role models to aspire to, and then actually work with them and give them the support that they kind of need at early stage or any stage in life. And I think the future will look bright if we really engage in this conversation, because so many issues in the world at this moment in time, and I think the next generation are going to be grappling with most of these, and I think they're already engaged in this conversation. And it's just our duty as a society is how do we unleash that next generation to really help us solve the problems that many of us have kind of created or contributed to. But I'm optimistic from what I've seen that hopefully the rhetoric around young people actually turns out to be real support and a genuine offer to the next generation. Otherwise, we're missing another opportunity here. And I'm very, I want to be encouraged, and I believe in that human capacity to do well. And if we enable them to innovate and really put that task on them and then give them the support and resources to do that, I think we can come out of this pandemic and society generally in a much better way than we would have done beforehand. But it's, I think it's down to us all now, to really campaign and help as many young people as we can. Not that they're the only group out there that needs our support, but I think that the next generation can really, they've got the ideas. I see it all the time. The young people that I work with, whether it's helping them into employment or setting up businesses, they really are infused. They really care about the world in a way that, our generations might not have done. So I'm really inspired. That's probably one of my big hopes, that we, unleash that potential of these young people and really support them going forward.
And let's keep our fingers crossed that that does happen and society doesn't abandon that generation of people. And I can imagine as well that Upturn, your business, Anwar, does have some exciting plans for the future, albeit we are still in something of an uncertain environment. But if we could sort of pretend we have a crystal ball for a moment and look ahead maybe 12 months from now, where ideally would you like yourselves to be this time in a year as hopefully we move out of social restrictions, and how would you like to see society moving forward in that post-COVID world?
Yeah, I mean, my big word at this moment in time is after the pandemic ends and going forward, the big thing that we should all be doing is collaboration and working together. There's not one organisation out there that can solve everything by themselves. And it's something that we pride ourselves at Upturn is, we collaborate, and it doesn't matter who you are to us, whether you're public, private, it doesn't matter. Let's come together, because I always say, two heads are better than one head. So going forward, I'm encouraged also by the conversations that are going on in terms of, society wanting more social enterprises. And I'm the biggest advocate of social businesses and social purpose vehicles out there. But I always bring this back to saying, look, we can't do it by ourselves. We only work and bring out the true potential when we collaborate. So going forward, I'm encouraged from the number of conversations at this moment in time that I'm having, whether that's with the big public sector organisations like the NHS, the local authorities, because again, they're grappling with these same questions. The private sector, again, they're grappling with, okay, how do we build that better in a different way? They've been under severe pressure for a long time now, different sectors in terms of, they've had some bad publicity, the fat cats, but not all public-private sector organisations are like that. In my opinion, every business wants to do the right thing, given the opportunity. So that collaboration piece, I think, is the future. Best things always come when people come together. And for me, looking forward for the next 12 months, we're getting involved in some exciting collaboration pieces here locally in Greater Manchester. We've managed to secure a big part of a Greater Manchester bid that's brought in £8 million to invest in the next generation of social enterprises. But the bit that was missing was the ecosystem, and that's the bit that I'm getting involved in at this moment in time. But my vision is obviously bring this conversation to the table and actually innovate. I think that's the next part of this journey for the UK economy with Brexit and everything else that is happening. We have to suddenly now, innovate and do things slightly differently. So I'm really encouraged that going forwards, that businesses will step up, individuals will step up, and government will step up to enable, all this to happen in partnership. And fingers crossed, 12 months from now, if we're having another conversation, we should be talking a bit more positively about how we're recovering and the opportunities that are being created for everyone.
I certainly hope that we can have such a positive discussion over the course of the next 12 months, Anwar, and we are seeing those changes that we do really want to see. Exactly right. And I do think, just given how really eye-opening it's been welcoming you onto the show with us today, it would be very productive to do that, and hopefully there will be those positive stories to share of how we are building back better from this.
Yeah, and like I said, we're already seeing it here at Upturn, the amount of people that, we're starting to kind of come and asking for our support again. And the business community, like I said, although we've been going through a very rough time as of late, the human spirit, even, always is there it surprises me, or, never ceases to surprised. And I'm really, like I said, I'm a kind of positive type of person generally. You know, I'm looking at the team and speaking to lots of different people. You know, we just want to be, you know, unleashed, if a word, to really get involved and really show society what we can do together. So fingers crossed, Scott, that, you know, in 12 months' time or even in 6 months' time, as soon as we're given that opportunity, I think we have to grasp the nettles here and really start to innovate, because there's so many issues that I think that can be turned around. We're not asking for magic money to be turned, you know, just give us different things here. You know, there's a genuine opportunity here to reset, to think about things in a calm way, and then come together and really solve some of society's big problems, because I believe they can be solved. And we've seen that with COVID, and I'm seeing it every day. You know, the businesses are innovating all the time. So fingers crossed.
Food for thought for leaders within all walks of life, I think. Anwar, thank you so much for joining us on the show today. And most importantly, until we do speak again, please do continue to take care and stay safe with all still going on. We're not quite out of the woods yet, but better days are coming, I'm sure.
Well, thank you, Scott. And like I said, always a privilege to share some thoughts. But like I said, fingers crossed. And next time we speak, that will come out of this a lot better than where we are now.
I was speaking then to Anwar Ali, Managing Director of Upturn Enterprises, and I hope you all thoroughly enjoyed the interview. Until next time, now that indoor hospitality has returned, I'm heading back to my usual spot in the Westminster Arms to raise a glass to outstanding leadership, and hopefully over the coming weeks we will keep taking further strides toward normal life. Take care and goodbye.